Guys, exciting times. The ECU has been powered up in the Gloria, like literally in the Gloria with power on, and we're going to go through some of the settings to set up a brand new Link ECU install in a car. I'm no guru by a long way, but I can show you some of the basics and some of the tricks that we've learned along the way. Righty-ho, so what we've got in here is absolutely perfect, flawless, 100% finished install. Not. We're just going through the basics at the moment. One of the first things you can do, if you can take the steering wheel out, sometimes that's pretty bloody handy to get in there and just give yourself a little bit more room. So we'll just carefully throw the steering wheel somewhere out of the way, taking great care to scratch and damage absolutely everything you possibly can. So for the purpose of doing what I'm up to today, ideally I just want to make the electronic throttle work. That's all I'm actually aiming for. I've just got a small gel cell 12 volt battery and hot wired things basically to hook that up. And this is our comms cable into the ECU. ECU is quite nicely mounted and everything. That's all done relatively well. And we've powered up the Link software on the old laptop. So what I've done to get this up and running is just gone here into file, and then I've opened up, sorry, I skipped off somewhere else. I've opened up a previous file over here of a tune that we had in another vehicle that actually had a VK56DE in it. So we knew that that would run, and most settings in it would be pretty good. So I'm not going to open that up because it goes all crazy. So you start there, and then you go through your functions. So we've got this bit of paper here that Link provides in the help section of your software. Gone through, labelled absolutely everything as to what it's doing. And now you sit here and go through the tedious task of, well, it's not tedious really, I shouldn't make out that it's a bad thing. Auxiliary 7. We go in here, auxiliary 7. Actually that's an intercooler pump, not purge. So we click on this. We click on that. Oh, sorry. We click on that. That'll help if I do that. Oh look, intercooler spray. That's pretty close. You can actually, you can write your own label, or you go through here and you find out what's actually there and set it up according to that. There may be an intercooler pump one there already. Or not. That's alright. Just for now, I'm just going to call it intercooler spray. Where'd that go, guys? I seem to have lost it. Going quite well with this, aren't we? Where is it? Oh, there. Okay. Boom. It's now an intercooler spray. By the sounds of it, it just turned it on and off. Wow. So we need to change some settings in there. Here we go. We've got a label, and we put our intercooler pump. Okay. So now we go into ECU settings, auxiliary outputs. Not sure if it's going to be, there it is, it's under that one. Auxiliary 7, intercooler pump. There's a noise happening here. That's the drive-by-wire. It's all powered up, it goes. We've got the laptop hooked up there. We've got a power supply jury-rigged to our starter motor. We've got all the spark plugs out. We've got some of the sensors up and running. Well, all of them actually. That's our throttle working. Awesome, eh? So that goes. There's a couple of fault codes popping up to do with some of these sensors, air temp sensor, things like that. I've set them wrong. So we just need to establish exactly what the values are supposed to be for these, and it'll stop those fault codes coming up. But what we can do here, if you look at the oil pressure just here, Now let's see if I can get that to focus for you. Oh, this is tricky, eh? That'll do. But anyway, let's hotwire it by doing this, and watch your oil pressure. Look at that. So that's good. We've got oil pressure. Awesome. Now we're just waiting for a new set of spark plugs. These are the original ones from the car. These are a heat range too hot for what we want. And also, I'm not sure if you'll see it there, if I hold it just the right spot. These are actually, two of them are cracked. So, sorry if the lights were flickering a bit there. There you go, you can see that. There's a couple of lines down there. Whoever installed those cocked it over and cracked the spark plug ceramics. So two of them were cracked. We would have had, yeah, excuse the mess, don't worry about that. Hey, there's a bigger mess down there if you want to complain about messes. We would have had a misfire if we'd got that going. So what I'm going to do next is I'll put the crank angle sensor in, which is missing at the moment. We've got all these other sensors are all in, wired up. I can crank that over and do what's called a trigger scope. Capture the trigger scope. Sorry about the reflections on the computer there. If we go into ECU controls up here, we click on that. Down the bottom here we have something called trigger scope. You click on that and look at that. I'm not going to show you that while I'm doing it because it's actually a bit tricky to do with multiple hands being required at the same time. But it's pretty simple. You crank the engine over or run it, hit capture, and it'll bring up a graph across here of everything that's happening with your crank and cam angle sensors, so you can have a look, diagnose any faults, which is exactly what I want to do right now, and just make sure this conglomeration of stuff in here is actually going to run properly. So I'll do that and I'll come back to you. Alright, so there's our trigger scope, and there's a problem. This, bad. Very, very bad. Not sure what the exact cause of this is. We need to look into it. We've got some hectic, crazy, busy going on that should not be there. So there's some sort of interference in the signal. It's unlikely the sensor itself is actually doing that. It's pretty clean for the rest of it. I need to figure out what it is doing that's creating that. Crank looks excellent. Crank angle sensor. That's a nice, steady, beautiful, clean pattern. That's great. Yeah, but it's cam sensor, that's not good. So I'll figure out what's going on there. I'm going to shut down a couple of other things and see if it's interference coming from somewhere. Right, that's more like it. That's what we want to see. And the culprit was not me. It was sensor. It's faulty. So I took the one that was in the crank, put it onto the cam. Problem solved. So we've got a faulty cam angle sensor. What a shame. Never mind, we'll get another one of those. I'm thinking maybe a pair, buy brand new ones, put brand new one on the crank and brand new one on here. Geez, I'll need one for my motor that's hiding under there, which is where the crank one came from, which is a good one. So I have to buy 3, I guess. But there we go. So if I find another one of those to test, should be one in the March, I guess. And we'll be right on track for maybe kicking it in the guts tomorrow. I'd have to put the fuel system in. And there's no accessory drive belt on the front of it, but we could at least probably start it, which would be good fun for a Friday. So, yay. Alright, so I swapped over those cam and crank angle sensors, and that problem is resolved. We will have to replace that sensor or buy some new ones, as I think I might have mentioned earlier on. So the next thing you do is you set up your timing light. Here's our timing light here, and I use a lead like this stuck onto the coil with the spark plug somewhere else. You can leave the spark plug down in the hole, obviously, That's all right when you've got all 8 plugs in there, or engine running. For what we're doing at the moment, I want to take the load off the starter motor, so I've taken all 8 plugs out so it cranks over nice and easily, so we can do all these trigger type things and timing type things without loading things up more than we need to. Trigger offset. So way down there is a timing pin. I'm not sure if you guys can even see it. There's a torch down there. There you go. You should be able to see that just below that pulley. In between those 2 pulleys is a pin hanging out. So you go into your software. At the moment I'm busy. Actually got it set up for something else. Don't mind my reflection there. And you set up your trigger offset. So let's go. I'll show you how that happens. You go into... I've forgotten where it is. Triggers. Here we go. Triggers. Calibrate. And there's your window there. So then you go into the little bandana thingy here. Opens up a whole window. And you set your triggers. Basically, you set your timing to what you want it fixed to, depending on what the marks are on your pulley. You might only have a mark at 10 degrees. So in which case you'd use 10 degrees. We've got one at 0 on this engine, so I set it at 0. And crank it over. You change this offset number until your timing light is flashing bang on, whatever this number was, 0 degrees in this case. And the guy's done quite a good job of positioning his crank angle sensor exactly where it needs to be. So it's at 0, so we don't have any offset at all. It is 0, and it's lining up perfectly with our spark, so that's great. I believe you can click this window here. Goes back to where we were. Awesome. So seeing as I'm already hooked up onto that one, we should have done this beforehand actually, because I could have made myself a bit of a stuff up. You want to check that your spark is working. We know it's working because we saw it. You want to check that you're actually on number 1, because that could have caused a problem. So you turn that on. Oh, look at that. Can you hear it? You might be able to see it. Not sure if you can see it or not. I can't see it through the phone. I can see it in person. I don't want to get my phone too close to that because it's probably 100,000 volts and that'll be the end of my phone. So you go around and check all your coils are on the right cylinders before you kick the thing in the guts. Turn that off again when you're done. Before you go and kick it in the guts and have a couple of cylinders firing back in your face and doing all sorts of bad things. So I'll run through and do the rest of those. It's actually a little bit late to be out here working. It's gone quite dark outside. So I'll do the rest of those. I'll just swap that one coil to the next plug, Do that. Done. Then inside for some din-dins. Alrighty. Dinner was yummy. Following day. So quite a bit's happened today. Quite a bit of frustration. Aggravation. Brick walling from the little car. We've got a belt on here, accessory drive belt. My, what a saga just doing that. So we're in little old New Zealand. Ideally I need a 7PK 3000 belt. The perfect length would be 7PK 3015, but I don't think anyone makes it. I have seen some listings of some really obscure brands. Maybe they're available, maybe not. But anyway, in New Zealand, getting a 7PK 3000 was just a non-event. And then the next one up that's available is 7PK 3030. And even that was basically a bit of a saga to get my hands on that. So what I ended up doing is a little bit of clevery. Let's get the torch. We'll back up so we can get the torch. You guys can see there's a lot more stuff on there, eh? Which is good. Shows we're making progress. Down there, almost middle of the screen. Yeah, perfectly in the middle of the screen now. That idler on that tensioner. So the VK56DE one is significantly bigger than a VK45 one. I can show you. Let's go for a walk and I'll show you. I've got lots of stuff. Don't mind the bang, that's just me standing on that silly plate. So here's a VK56 DE one, right? It's pretty significant diameter. Down under here is my assortment of VK45 DE parts, which I will eventually tidy up. I just haven't done it yet. That's not the one that I've used, it's similar. This might actually even be a DD one because it's got a little rib on the back of it. The one that I've used doesn't. So if you look at those two pulleys, you'll see there's quite a bit of difference in diameter, which is really good. That helped me a lot. So we ended up using, put that back up on the shelf. God, they're slowly getting emptier. Like there's, ignore that stuff on the very bottom, that's not Gloria stuff. It's really just these 3 or 4 shelves here. Most of that stuff that's not going back in the car. We ended up using a 7PK 2840 belt because that's what we could get, right? That was the easiest one to get. And with the smaller pulley on the tensioner down there it is there, that is just enough. We just get away with it. The tension has almost run out of travel. It probably is a little bit too much tension on the belt, potentially. Maybe not. It might be about right. We'll see how it goes. If it eats a water pump or something like that, we'll know that that's not good. I did approach Stillen and ask them what the original part number is for the belt. Haven't got a response from them. I have only asked them via Facebook Messenger, to be fair, not via the phone or email. So anyway, in there is exhaust manifolds are back on. I can put the the dipstick. You might be able to see where's the little bit of black plastic tape way down there. There, you can see it in the middle of the screen. That's where the dipstick goes, so I can put that back in. We can put our steering shaft back in. I've put a new set of NGK Platinum or Iridium? Yeah, I can't remember. Some new NGK spark plugs anyway. One heat rate cooler than stock because that's what we need. I've ordered through GSS, good buggers at Green Lane Speed Shop, some fittings to go up under here. There's 2 that we need to go on there, and then we can plug in some AN6 push lock hose and put that directly onto our PCV valves because it happens to be the exact right size. That'll get that side of the system sorted out. This other side, I think there might be 8-8, I think, and I'll route those into this intake system later on. That's what the factory system had, and low volume vehicles rules basically say we've got to replicate the factory system. We can put a catch can in there if we want to. I'd rather not. I'd rather try and keep this engine bay as vacant as we can, so there's minimal fuss in here and it'll look quite tidy. I've got to get a couple of simple things to do yet before we run it properly. I've got to replace this hose with one slightly longer. This is just a little bit too short. If it had another 10mm, it'd be fine. I've got to put some electric fans on there. We can't run a viscous fan on this. There just isn't the room. I could drive it off the front of the water pump, but we just haven't got the room. It's simple as that. We'd end up having to do something pretty funky with, sorry, I'm having trouble driving this gimbal. We'd end up having to do something pretty funky with this hose, come out and then back over this way and then straight down. Which, if we have trouble with the electric fans, then that's something I'll look at. It's not impossible. Top hose would have to be, we'd have to do a bit of a bend up here and then come over the top of the fan and then back down, and you probably would get away with it. You might be able to make a fan work. We'll see how we go. We'll see how we go. So fuel system, it's all back together in the engine bay. Intercooler cooling system is mostly sorted out. I think I'm going to change one of these fittings. This might be an old one and this is a new one. They're both speed flow and they're both the exact same part number, but one's a very different radius to the other one, and it just bugs me. It doesn't look right, so I might look at changing one of those. So they're both the same. Fuel pressure regulator, I don't like that red cap on top of it. Might paint it or get it anodized black later on when we take everything to pieces again. The headers will get high performance coated. Harness will probably actually go over the top of these two hoses rather than underneath. Underneath's not very good. And I've got to make some brackets to hold the hoses pretty much there like that. These are the only spare wires we have from our ECU. We've used everything else. I think there's 8 wires there or something like that. I'm going to de-pin those and take them out of the plugs to tidy things up. But it's got oil in it. It's been cranked over. It's got oil pressure. Electrically, the engine is 100% ready to run, except for I'm just going to plug that in and put a hose on it. And the engine itself, if we got the fuel supply on, would go. Now we haven't got the key set up properly yet, so at this point in time we put a power supply onto this cable here, which goes on the starter motor, and put the power onto the end of that one, engages the solenoid, and it cranks over. There's a few other reasons why we can't run it just at the moment. No coolant in it, and power steering pump, no fittings on there at the moment. I've got to make a couple of hoses and a reservoir. That's the biggest thing. I've got to make a tank to go here. I'll just attach it onto those two things there and have a nice simple tank right there. Then we'll be able to start it, and that'll be awesome. Not too much else goes in here. Brake booster, some pipes for that, hinges for the bonnet. There's a fan that lives over here, which will actually pretty much hide the fuel pressure regulator anyway. And that's it really. We still don't have a windscreen washer reservoir, but that's all right. We'll tuck that somewhere. They can even go in the boot if you really want to keep things simple. So yeah, right, well, it's dinner time again. That's that. Hopefully next video we'll kick this thing in the guts and it'll go. We've got I've checked everything. We've got good crank angle and cam angle sensors, and we've got good compression, we've got spark, all the right places. We've got the injectors are all working. In theory, it should go. So we'll see. All right, cheers, bye.